What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Powered by Christ podcast. I'm excited to have another video on my channel, and who I got here with me today.
My name is Jordan. I'm 23, and I go here at UMF too.
You got social media? Tell them follow you.
Yeah, Moody_Rock05 on Instagram, and then on Snapchat it's MoodyRock308.
There, y'all go tap in with him. Y'all go tap in with the bro. And today, very excited. I'm always excited in all my videos I have on my page because I'm posting a new video. I'm bringing the energy, bringing light of God. How can I not be happy? Anyways, we gonna jump straight into it. The topic of today's podcast is finding friends. This is the Powered by Christ podcast, season 1, episode 9. There's one more episode left in season 1 before I transition into season 2, and I'm so happy to get into season 2. We're gonna be transitioning seasons the more I evolve and grow and blow up with my podcast. But let's get right into it. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the first verse. First verse I got comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 6 verses 14. And this here is what it says: do not be unequally yoked with believers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? Okay, I'm gonna explain what that means to me. I feel like how this relates to finding friends is because whenever we're trying to find friends, whenever we're trying to look for friends, whenever we're trying to look for new friends and find new friends and form new relationships, we shouldn't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Meaning that if they're far from God, then it wouldn't be such a good choice to befriend them. If they're far from God, if they don't know God, or if they carry characteristics or qualities that God heavily dislikes, then probably shouldn't be friends with them. That's not such a good idea to be friends with somebody who's super far from God, because 9 times out of 10, they're gonna pull you away from God if you become friends with them. So righteousness with darkness, or righteousness with lawlessness, as the verse says, does not go together. It's like magnets trying to go together, but they're always repelling every time they get close. I know y'all know what I'm talking about. So we should never become equally yoked with unbelievers. That goes for not just friendships, but that goes for dating. It goes for hanging out with people, hanging out with a person, going somewhere with the person, going to a certain place. You know what I'm saying? You know your boundaries. You watching this video, you know your boundaries. You know what you like and what you don't like, how far you'll go and how far you won't go. So all of us have boundaries in our walks with God, and I feel like that's a very important boundary to address, is not becoming equally yoked with unbelievers, especially in friendship, because they'll pull you so far from God. And then this right here is the last thing I'm gonna say for verse 1. There's one more part in verse 1 that I just want to kind of touch on, and it says in the very last part, it says, or what fellowship has light with darkness? I feel like that means, how can light and darkness mix? It's like two things that can never mix. Like what is anything you can think of that can never mix?
Water and oil.
Yeah, those things will never mix. Like if you drink it, it's probably gonna taste disgusting. Same with light. Like it's a terrible combination when light and darkness go together, because when darkness collides with light, it comes out to be darkness. So same thing with oil and water, like he just said. Oil collides with water, it turns out to be a whole different substance, a whole different liquid, a whole different end result ultimately. Same with us. Our whole personalities are gonna change because the qualities who we're hanging with, those new friends that we met, are gonna rub off on us in such a negative way. So it's always important to be mindful of who we fellowship with. So that's really all I have to say for the first verse. What you got to say?
I think that's a good one, because it's like when you like match with like other people, like your energy and their energies, they gotta like rub off of each other.
Right.
And, you know, they say like birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah,
so like
it's a big
if you're
one.
hanging out with somebody who has like a negative influence or doesn't believe in the Lord, and you believe in the Lord, it's not gonna mesh well, because you know you guys got different philosophies.
Exactly. It's like terrible chemistry.
Light and dark don't mix. Like
Exactly. What's your first verse? Do you have a first verse?
My first verse is Proverbs 17:17 to 18. A friend loveth at all times, and a brother is born from adversity. And then I think that first part right there is that a friend is always going to be there for you and always care for you. But, you know, the ones that are really the closest to us, that comes from like the hardships and stuff that we go through. Because like, you know, it's really through the tough times that you figure out the real people that, you know.
Who's your real circle? Who's your real cup of tea? I feel like you can't really define friend if in the definition you don't specify that you can call on that person in hard times. You don't specify that you can talk to that person in hard times. You don't specify that they can lend a helping hand in hard times. So how would you define the word friend?
I would define it as like somebody who's there for you, you know, whenever you like are in trouble, right? They're not just there to like get something from you, because I feel like a lot of people only like depend on you when it's like convenient for them.
Beneficial.
Right? Yeah. And they don't really care when like you're in trouble or something.
Disappear when it rains.
You need it, yeah, they're gone. I feel like that you need somebody there who's like really dependable, somebody who's like, you know, gonna be there and have the same energy when you need help.
Right. And then also somebody who will like pour into you. And I feel like that kind of like ties into my second verse. And specifically, my second verse comes from Proverbs, like kind of like you said. I ain't gonna lie, like most of my verses on my list come from Proverbs, because Proverbs is always my favorite book. I just love Proverbs. But specifically, my verse is Proverbs 27:9, and it says, perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice. I feel like mainly like particularly that second part of the verse that I said, where I was like, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice. I feel like a friend giving another friend like heartfelt advice is the definition of a friend. Like somebody who, kind of like I said before I said the verse, like somebody who will pour into you, somebody who will give you words of encouragement, somebody who will give you words of wisdom, somebody who got your back through the rain and the pain, the ups and downs, the thick and thin, the rough and hard, like all types of adversities and difficulties through life. Because I had a friend who was on a podcast in a previous video, not my very previous video that I dropped, but I think it was like the one right before that, and he said that life is just not a straight line. Like you don't just walk life straight and then not have anything happen to you, not have any difficulties happen to you. So I feel like God is kind of saying in Proverbs 27:9 that the sweetness of a friend, like the sweetness of sisterhood or the sweetness of brotherhood, like this doesn't have to be bonded by blood, because friendships isn't always bonded by blood, but like I feel like the sweetness of it, that's why it specifies perfume and incense bring joy to the heart. It brings joy to the one who is feeling the friendliness of the friendship, someone who is feeling the vulnerability of the friendship, somebody who is feeling the comfortability of the friendship, someone who is feeling the good vibes of the friendship, someone who is feeling welcomed as a friend. Ultimately, I feel like that's how the relationship should be, from friend to friend, from friend treating a friend in the best way that they can possibly treat them. I feel like the characteristics will rub off in a positive way if the friend is influencing the other friend in a positive way. That's all I gotta say for verse 2. I feel like I explained that well.
That was good. Yeah. Because I feel like it's like you can go like, you know, because you were saying like the straight path, you can always deviate, and like your friends, right? If you go to them for advice and they give you bad advice, then it's like you could deviate to a bad path and, you know, stray further from God.
I feel like that's why it's important to take up everything with God. Like, and what I mean by take up, I mean kind of like double check a little bit. Like if someone gives you advice, like some people will take advice and they'll just go straight along with it without like double checking or like being like, is this advice really true? And then other people will actually sit and question if the advice is really true. And I feel like more people should do option number 2 instead of just rolling with the advice. And I feel like the greatest possible way to confirm the wisdom that we're being told by our friends, and not just our friends but other humans, is by taking it up with God, like going in his presence, spending time in his presence, spending time in his word, and seeing if the advice that your friend gave you lines up ultimately with what God said. So that's really all I had to say to touch on what you said. But what's your second verse? Do you have a second verse?
I got Proverbs 18:24. A man that have friends must shew himself friendly, and there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother.
I'm ready from the KJV.
I know a lot of people use like the New King James Version because it doesn't have like the dot and the through it, but I don't know. I like that like OG. But what I thought this verse meant was that it sounds like a person who has friends must do good towards them, and if they have friends who stand by them, they should consider themselves blessed because they're like family to them.
Okay, like kind of like touching on your verse again. Do you mean like you kind of feel like a man that has close friends feels like those friends are family? Or?
Yeah, it can hurt like sometimes, you know, when you like lose a friendship. It's almost like losing a family member depending on how long you've been friends with that person, right? Like all the hard times you went through, all the like relationships and all that. Like you went through life experience with these people, similar to how, you know, you go through life experience with a family member. So it's like it hurts when, you know,
like part ways, or
Oh,
so you feel like the verse you just said kind of relates to parting ways?
I think it relates to how like strong a bond with a person is, right? Like and like sometimes, you know, friends could be closer than family depending on how close you are in that relationship and how dependent they are close to.
I feel like there is some situations and scenarios where in our lives we can catch ourselves like being so close to our friends that we feel like at points in time they're closer than family. There could be times where we feel that way because we communicate with them so much, or we spend more time with that friend or those group of friends than we do with our own family, or times where, you know, you try to vent to your family and they're like either pushing you away or not listening, but you have that one friend, or you have that one group of friends who's always there to hear you out and listen to you. So I feel like that's very important in everybody's life. I feel like everybody should have that. I feel like nobody should go their whole life without a close friend or a close group of friends, because God never intended for us to go through life alone. That's all I really got to say to touch on his verse. But without further ado, I'm gonna get into my third verse. This right here is what my third verse says. My third verse comes from Proverbs once again. I wrote 4 verses. Like, I don't usually write 4 verses, but okay, we can just do 4 then. Anyways, without further ado, my 4th verse particularly is Proverbs 22 verses 24 through 25, and it says, do not make friends with a hot-tempered person, not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. That one is like so self-explanatory.
I got that one too.
Oh, you got that same one? That happened in one of my past podcast videos. But man, this one's like so self-explanatory. Like, why make friends with someone who's always mad? Because their characteristics are inevitably gonna rub off on you.
Yeah.
Like, if you're always hanging with somebody who's mad, you're gonna start to become mad all the time. You're gonna start to have angry characteristics. You're gonna start to become easily angered. Someone's gonna say something slight. Someone's gonna say something not even that heavy. Like, they may be just joking around with you, and it's gonna get so under your skin because you hung out with that one person. Like,
it can really like influence like your heart, right? And like the way that you stray from God, like it can really affect the way that you like start to think about things.
What do you mean, like the way you start to think about things?
Like I said, friends who have hate within their hearts, be it sin or wickedness towards the Lord, can infect your heart as well. Like it can like infect your spirit, right? You start to like have like negative feelings and emotions towards people, and it starts to affect like your whole mood.
Exactly. All because you hung out with a hot-tempered person. This all is because of this verse. So when you associate with people who are easily angered, you have a short temper. Like anything that is slight, anything that it doesn't even have to be meant to hurt you, but it can still make you mad because you're so easily angry. You're so vulnerable in a bad way that you let simple stuff get under your skin. So I feel like that relates to finding friends, because when you find friends, don't look for those types of friends who get easily angered. Don't look for those types of friends who get easily upset, because if you do make friends with those who get easily upset, then they're gonna get under your skin. Not necessarily just that they're gonna get under your skin, but other people are gonna get under your skin too, because their characteristics are so heavy, and those characteristics rub off, they transfer to you, and then they sit in your spirit, and then now you have to deal with those characteristics too. It's kind of like whenever you were growing up and whenever you were coming up, characteristics rub off on you on who you used to hang around the most, whether it be your cousins, whether it be your mom, your dad, stepmom, your stepdad, whoever it may be. Whoever you hung out with the most, you have those characteristics in your life, and you have those characteristics on you right now, whether you know it or not, because you hung out with that person or those people so much. I feel like I explained that the best I could. You got anything to add on to what I said?
Yeah, it's kind of like imprinting. Like, you know, when you're growing up and you're like a toddler and stuff, you know, your like parents are saying like certain things around you and stuff. That's how you learn like words, right? Exactly. And those people like influence how like you behave. It's like how you said, like those people are the ones who raised you. They're gonna be the ones that like make you the person that you become.
All because of your upbringing. Yeah. Do you have a third verse?
I do have a third verse from Ecolations 4:9.
Ecolations?
Ecolations. Did I pronounce it wrong?
Nah, it's Ecclesiastes.
Oh, Ecclesiastes. Oh my goodness. I thought it was Ecolations. My bad. Ecclesiastes 4:9-12. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. Okay. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him is that alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him. And threefold cord is not quickly broken. Now, I thought that was a good verse altogether, because I think it's explaining the power of friendship and teamwork, and how like people will like push each other up. Like having like a strong bond is what like moves people forward.
Kind of like teamwork.
Yeah. And I like that, because it's like telling you how like you can face like something alone, right? And it's like an impossible task. But
you have no one to fall back on.
Yeah, but if you like have like other people that help you out, then it's like it's easier to do the task together.
It's kind of like group projects.
Mm-hmm.
Like whenever you're working on a group project in school, like let's say like it's science class or your chemistry class. Even though I hate chemistry, but let's just say it's your chemistry class. You have like a big project where you have to like make a poster board or something, and you have to put like ions and atoms and all types of molecules and stuff on it. And you're confused and you don't know how to do it. And not to say you're not smart because you don't know how to do it, but you just have less knowledge on that topic. But your teacher says that you can group with at least two people to get the project done. So you group with two people, and the two people that you group with are actually super smart, especially in chemistry. So they help you on the project, and not only do you pass the project, but you pass with a super high grade, and your confidence goes up. So that's the advantages of companionship. That's the advantages of moving forward with multiple people, moving forward in friendship, moving forward in care, moving forward in love, moving forward in peace. All the fruit of the spirit, moving forward in that. Say like you did so good in that group project that you became lifelong friends with the people that you did that group project with, all because you did that group project with them. Simple stuff like can go a long way. Like lifelong friends, like how he was talking about in Ecclesiastes, like 2 is better than 1, 3 is better than 2, 4 is better than 3. And you know where I'm going with this. I'm gonna just keep going up, but not saying it's good to have a whole lot of friends, because some people will deceive you, some people will throw you off, and some people will sidetrack you. But know what friends are for you, and then know what friends will move forward with you and support you in what you're trying to do. And especially if it's like Christian friends too, because that's something that I've been praying for. I've been praying for a whole lot of Christian friends, or not necessarily a whole lot of Christian friends, but I've been praying for a good amount of Christian friends to come into my life. And they haven't came just yet, but that doesn't mean God has ignored my prayers. It just means that his timing is different than mine. But I definitely relate to Ecclesiastes 4 verses 9 through 12. That was the verses you read?
Yeah.
Definitely relate to that, because it's never good to do things solo unless you fully understand what you're doing. But most of the time, as us being humans, we don't always fully understand what we're doing. And when we're doing it alone, it can be scary. That's really all I gotta say for that verse right there. I hope I touched on that well, but I feel like I know I touched on that well. So without further ado, I'm gonna get into my last verse. Okay, my last verse comes from Proverbs once again.
Proverbs is right.
Proverbs be hitting.
Yeah.
Proverbs be hitting. Man, Proverbs be clocking everybody. It's like a punch in the face, an unexpected punch in the face. But my last verse comes from specifically Proverbs chapter 13, verses 13 through 14. People who despise advice are asking for trouble. Those who respect the command will succeed. The instruction of the wise is like a life-giving fountain. Those who accept it avoid the snares of death. Deep verse in it.
That's a really good
Yeah,
one.
I'm about to explain, but I feel like this verse means to me. I feel like Proverbs chapter 13, verses 13 through 14 ties into finding friends, because whenever you're friends with somebody who is wise and they give you advice and you ignore it or you despise it, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for defeat. You're asking for punishment. Ultimately, you're asking for negative consequences, because whenever you ignore people, or not just people, because friends aren't just regular people. Friends are somebody you know. Friends are someone who you're close with. You may not see your friend every day, but you see them every week. You may not see your friend every week, but you see them every month. Ultimately, you see your friend often, because if someone's your friend, that means you see them often. But if your friend is someone who is wise, significantly wiser than you, and you don't take advice from them, most of the time when someone gives you advice, why do you think people give you advice?
Because they want what's best for you, trying to help you out.
Exactly. And then not only that, I feel like people give you advice because they've been through it already. Like, I feel like a lot of people will not give you advice if they haven't been through it already. And if someone does give you advice without being through it already, then you probably shouldn't take it. But whenever you do despise advice from your friend who is wiser than you, you're asking for trouble. You're asking for the anger of God, asking for the wrath of God. You're asking for God to punish you somehow, especially if it's godly advice too. Like, if your friend is giving you godly advice, you're not accepting it, you're not taking it, you're not rolling with it and going the path of the advice that your friend just gave you, and that's not a good sign. And that's not even the whole verse. The rest of the verse says, those who respect the command will succeed. So if you respect what your wiser friend says, or your wiser group of friends tell you, you're gonna go far because you just accepted what they told you. That's all you have to do. Accept it and then apply it. 2 A's. And then this is what the last part of the verse says. I'm gonna explain how it ties into finding friends as well. The last part of the verse says, the instruction of the wise is like a life-giving fountain. Those who accept it avoid the snares of death. It's like a life-giving fountain because your friend is constantly giving you advice. Like, you may have a friend that's wiser than you, not just in one area, multiple areas, not just one specific part of life, but multiple parts of life, a variety of parts of life. So I feel like when your friend knows more than you, shouldn't take their advice as a joke. Shouldn't take it as something lightly, something to be played with. You shouldn't take it as just a grain of salt, but you should always take your friend's advice to heart. Not saying we should take everything in life to heart, but especially your friend's advice who's wiser than you. Because in the second part of that last verse, in the finding friends, those who accept it avoid the snares of death. Sometimes your friend may be giving you a life or death situation advice. Sometimes your friend or your friends or your close friend, I mean, that's on you to discern whether they're a close friend or just a friend. But when they give you advice, like, more than half the time, it's to save your life. Because sometimes your friends can give you advice to save your life. Because if you accept that advice, you avoid the snares of death. This could be a situation you don't know you're getting yourself into. This could be a situation that your friend has already been through. This could be a situation your friend is trying to give you a heads up on. This could be a sticky situation where your friend is like, hey, if you get yourself in that, you might not be able to get yourself out of that. Or this could be a situation that, like, you're doing for the first time, but your friend already tried it and it didn't work out well for them. So that's 5 things, but I could keep going. But ultimately, I hope y'all get the point of what I'm trying to say, because if you despise your friend's advice who's wiser than you, you're asking for trouble. But if you respect the command, then you'll succeed. And that goes a long way in life, not just with friends who are wiser than you, anybody who's wiser than you. So I feel like that's what that means. Proverbs 13 verses 13 through 14. Did I explain that well?
Yeah, I agree with like all of that, because I believe that we as humans are like very stubborn, very prideful. I mean, of course, it's one of the sins.
Especially like as we go through our life and like stuff in our life increases, like size of our house or the size of our bank account or the type of car that we have, we definitely start to have changes in our personality and our moods with the newer stuff that we get.
Like the earthly possessions?
Yeah, because some people, they let money change them. They let stuff that they pile up on change them. And then ultimately that leads to their ego becoming high. So that's what I feel. I had to like kind of like relate to what you just said. But what else were you saying?
I just like personally feel like you said, the life or death situations, like when we don't take that advice, like it could like ultimately cost us, you know, everything. So it's like when somebody has gone through that experience and they're trying to help you out, you should take that advice, because it's like they have like, you know, more of the life experience. And ultimately, if it's like a life or death thing, it could like cost you. So I just think it's like a good thing. Apply that to yourself.
What happens if you don't apply it?
I mean, especially if it's like something that's like going against the Lord. It's like something like super like negative, like, you know, let's say like drinking or something like that, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like you just came home from the bar, or you didn't just come home, but you just came out of the bar. You're drunk, you're not in your right mind. There's a lot of times where people who get drunk and leave the club, like their friend who's not drunk or their friend who's in their right mind is trying to offer to drive them home, but the drunk friend is rejecting them. They're like, no, I can drive home. It's like, no, you can't. You can't.
Been through that experience, so they're like, hey, like let's not like do this because, you know,
you don't want to be DUI.
Yeah,
exactly. So I feel like that's all I gotta say for that verse. Did you say all your 4 verses?
Yeah, because I had the same one for the Proverbs.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you had like 3 Proverbs and then 1 book of Proverbs.
Yeah, I think I had 3 Proverbs and then Ecclesiastes. Okay, thank you.
I had 2 Corinthians and I had 3 Proverbs.
Yeah, Proverbs is a really good like book. It gives us a lot of self-reflection on like, you know, the world around us and how like, you know, we should move.
It gives a lot of invisible punches too.
Yeah, a lot of
gut punches too. It's probably your favorite book.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I think Job is. I'm such a big fan of like how like the waves, how you got to stay like strong in the faith and you know, trusting in God. You know, you never know because you could lose it all, but the Lord could give you back tenfold. So it's like
you never know how God could bless your life. Like you could lose everything, but God could bless you with more than what you lost. I feel like that's very powerful. But this was the Powered by Christ season 1 episode 9. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Y'all make sure y'all go follow my boy. Tell him your socials one more time.
Moody_rock05 on Instagram and then MoodyRock308 on Snapchat.
So make sure y'all subscribe to the Powered by Christ podcast. Make sure y'all hit that bell for post notifications if you want to see more content. Also comment down below what other topics you want to see, whether it be a duo video or whether it be a solo video with just me. Make sure y'all stay tuned for more content. Make sure y'all follow me on my Instagram at MalWorldWide. Make sure y'all follow me on my TikTok at MalWorldWide. Like I said, stay tuned for more content. It's only gonna get better. Peace out.
Lord, it's your plan. I know they see the fruit too. Lord, I'm your fan. One day I'll turn on YouTube. My walk began, and I'm in full pursuit too. From boy to man, how does how he feels to? I'm standing still, but my mind keeps on racing. And on the real, it's so much I've been facing. Oh, what's the spill? Because I can't get complacent. Yeah, you gave